Hey man, Hebron Ben Bilal coming back at you with another edition of this Boomer's Logic, man. Just about to call it a day out here doing my 1-2 thing, but I'm coming back today, man, to talk to you all about my health scare and what occurred. Now, this is going to be a longish video, and because I'm going to try to make this, I'm going to try to say this or explain this in a way in which it makes sense so people understand exactly what happened to me, what I experienced, what I went through. But before I do that, man, if you haven't already, go to the channel, Boomer's Logic, subscribe, like, hit the bell for notifications, because I'm going to start putting out a video probably every day. And this way, I put something out. And, if you got some opinions on the things that I'm talking about, or you want me to touch on something and give my opinion, just leave it in the comments section and we'll see what we can do. All right, so like I said, I'm going to try to explain this where it makes sense, because really it's going to be hard for a lot of people to comprehend or understand what I'm talking about. But I'm going to make it as if I'm speaking to, I think somebody had told me, make it as if you're talking to a 6-year-old or something like that. Explain it like you're talking to a 6-year-old. I can't remember. But I had a pulmonary embolism. What that is you get a blood clot in your lungs, and it clogs up the veins in your lungs. The pulmonary embolism I had sent me into cardiac arrest, and I died. Not only did I die, I died 5 times. So they had to continue to bring me back. So I'm going to start from the beginning and explain it. So one day, it was a 3-day period that I really couldn't breathe. And I was having trouble breathing. I was labor breathing for about 3 days, and it was really, really bad. On the 3rd day, I went to take my dog for a walk, and I couldn't do it. I walked her to the end of my driveway, and I said, I gotta turn around, because I couldn't breathe. It was almost as if I was choking or something. I couldn't breathe. So my wife had been saying for like 3 or 4 days, come on, we need to go to the hospital. Come on, we need to go to the hospital. And being a hard-headed, stubborn man, older man, I didn't go. Now, this is one place I want to pause and tell you fellas, man, and especially the fellas. Now, I'm speaking directly to the fellas at this point. You got to take your health seriously, man. You got to see the doctor regularly. If you see something amiss, don't be afraid to go to the emergency room. It's a lot, man. Now I don't miss my doctor's appointments, because now I got a slew of doctors, and we'll get to that. I don't miss my doctor's appointment. I don't miss any of my medication. And my wife was trying to convince me to, come on, let's go. So on the last day, she came to my office, and I was on one knee because I couldn't breathe. So she was like, come on, I'm taking you to the hospital. So we went to the ER. They had seen some things on some x-rays and scans that, they didn't divulge what they had seen, but they said, we want to admit you. Now, let me stop right here and explain to you. The only thing that I remember about this whole situation was getting to the hospital and trying to walk down the corridor in the emergency room. After that, I'm completely blanked. I don't remember any of it. And it took for my wife to sit me down and explain to me. And she had to keep explaining it to me because my short-term memory was really badly affected. So it was hard for me to remember a lot of things. So she had to keep explaining it to me. So me and her went over everything yesterday, and she was asking me a lot of questions about what I remembered, and I told her the only thing that I remembered was walking down the hallway in the hospital. So what occurred was they put me in the ER, they admitted me, they took me up to a room. My wife said that I was behaving bizarrely. She said she didn't really know what to do because I was doing stuff like, you know, there's a little pan that they have in the toilet, like that you're supposed to, if you have to go to the bathroom and they got to come in and get it and test it, that little bowl. She said I was taking that, drinking out of it. I was pacing the room and I was profusely sweating and I wouldn't sit down. I wouldn't lay down. I wouldn't listen to the nurses. And I told her I didn't remember any of this. And she said I just kept apologizing. I kept apologizing. And she said she couldn't handle it at that point because everything was just kind of, you know, crushing her. And because she couldn't explain my irrational behavior, why I was acting the way I was acting. So she said she needed a break. She went home. So when she got home, she said probably 30 minutes of her getting home, the hospital called her and told her that my health that I had taken a turn for the worse or something like that. So she immediately got back up there. She said when she got there, they were, you know, they had that pump thing on my face trying to pump oxygen into me and, you know, giving me the chest compressions. So she said at that time they explained to her that I had died 3 times. Every time that they started my heart, they, you know, kind of had things situated, I would die again. So she said that, so finally they took me back down to the ER. When I got down to the ER, I died 2 more times. So when they finally got me stabilized and all of that, they put me in an induced coma. So I was in a coma for a month and a half. Now this is where it gets interesting, and I'm going to explain it. And if I'm repetitive, forgive me, but it's going to be hard for me to explain what I experienced. So just bear with me. So when I was in this induced coma, when I came out, I told my wife what I had seen. So when I was in this induced coma, there was a funnel. I was in a funnel. It looked like a funnel, like a tornado funnel. And it was all red. And it was horrible. And I went like, when I opened my eyes, I was laying outside of the funnel, and it was 2 people, I believe they were people that said, you know, kept asking me, do you know who you are? Do you know who you are? Do you know where you're at? And I couldn't respond to them. Now this is what was actually going on when I was in the coma. And they took me, it was 2 of them, they took me, no, they kept saying, you're not supposed to be here. Who are you? You're not supposed to be here. So they took me and they pulled me into the funnel, carried me into the funnel, and put me in a room. And it was a hospital room. And they put me inside this hospital room. So they had different nurses presiding over me. But before I forget, like, the funnel was turning, but it was turning slowly. And every time this funnel would make a complete turn, it was a year. So you would go up a level every time. Like I started at the bottom level. By the time it made a complete turn, it was a year. So I would go up another level. Every level, like the bottom levels were horrible. I was seeing all kind of stuff was happening. And so I think when I got to about the 3rd or 4th level is when I really started experiencing some really outrageous stuff. Like one of my nurses came in and he kept pacing back and forth. And I'm gonna tell you something, so follow what I'm telling you. So this nurse kept pacing back and forth and talking to himself. And he was a white guy. And he's pacing back and forth, and he's talking to himself, and he's like trying to talk himself out of doing something to me. And I guess he couldn't convince himself, and he couldn't resist the urges. So what he did was he took out a knife and cut off a piece of my flesh, and he was eating it. And I was screaming and was begging him, you know what I'm saying, to stop. So the funnel came to a halt, and he had to come out the room, and another nurse came into the room. It was a female nurse. She was Asian, and she was just doing some crazy stuff to herself. Just let's leave it at that. She was in there with me, and she was doing some crazy stuff to herself. And she kept getting up, and they were giving me dialysis in that funnel, on that level. And she kept taking the dialysis bags and drinking the blood. And she was doing all kind of other stuff to herself, which I don't want to go. Now remember, I just said it was a white nurse and an Asian nurse. So once again, every time I went to a different level, the funnel would stop. I would go up a level until I got to a level where it was like some mesh over me. And I had to push my hand through the mesh and pull it down in order to pull whatever was impeding or was stuck in my mouth and my throat. I had to pull it out. Now, unbeknownst to me, I'm actually pulling the tube that they have down my throat. I'm pulling it out. And they had to keep shoving it back down. So my wife is explaining to me, like, yeah, you were pulling the tube out of your throat. And they had to keep stuffing it back. Now, in the funnel, I'm doing this. But in real life, I'm doing this. So I get to the top of the funnel. And when I get to the top of the funnel, all I keep thinking to myself is I have to get back to her. Meaning my wife. So, once I reached the top of the funnel, this is when they brought me out of the induced coma, self-induced coma. Now check this out, because this is where it gets really bizarre. So once they brought me out of the induced coma, I left the funnel. And once I left the funnel, remember I told you there was an Asian nurse and a white nurse. The white male nurse. The white male nurse was literally one of my nurses. But he was in that funnel that I'm telling you about. But he's literally one of my nurses when I come out the funnel and they bring me out of my... And I told them not to let him come in my room because the drugs had me so messed up. That I told the people, don't let him in my room because he's trying to eat me. So they know I'm tripping, I'm hallucinating and all of this, but it all happened. And this guy was in the funnel with me. I look up, the Asian nurse was one of my nurses. Literally, that was in the funnel. So I don't know. I explained it as being in hell. I told my wife, I said, I think I was in hell, and it was really surreal. And the crazy part is, like I say, those two nurses that I actually encountered in that funnel were actually my nurses. I can't explain it. If anybody can explain it, please hit me in the comment section and explain that to me. But anyway, after I was released, well, I wasn't released, I was sent to rehab. As I had to learn to walk again, I had to learn how to talk, I had to learn how to eat, I had to learn how to write. My wife was right there with me the whole time, man, and I'm grateful for her because we was going through a lot of stuff just before that happened, and she didn't tuck tail and run. She stayed right there with me, and I'm really grateful for that and for her. I had to relearn everything all over again. And I was in, with all that medication they had me on, it was in my system and it took time for it to get out. So I was hallucinating a lot. I mean, a lot. I was hallucinating a lot. And it scared my wife. They said it could take, up to a year for me to stop hallucinating. Because the drugs that they had me on. So, as you can see, I'm lucid now. I'm straight now. But it was a surreal experience, man. And I wanted to share that with y'all and what I've gone through, and the message here is for you men who are watching this video, man. I know we got a lot of pride and we don't like going to the doctor. We don't like getting checkups. Man, listen, do that. When your woman is in your ear, say, hey, baby, let's go get checked up. Let's do this. Man, get in there, see a physician. If you got any issues, go to the emergency room, man. Don't be like me. Died 5 times and had to be resuscitated. So this is my story. This is what happened to me, and I wanted to share that with y'all, man. And let y'all know that I'm back. I'm good. Oh, before I forget. So when I came out the coma, I had like these black things all over me. They were like big black sores. And one of the nurses explained what they were, said that they were like ulcers, but they were outside. And I had one that was like a sock on both of my toes, my big toe and the toe next to it. I had one here on my arm. You really can't see the damage that it did. And when I came out the coma and I had these on my toes were hurting so bad to the point that I wanted them to amputate my toes because it was so painful. Those sores were so painful that I begged them. I said, hey, listen, please cut them off. They're killing me. They couldn't give me enough morphine to even ease the pain. The pain was so extreme. Well, one of the toes cleared up, and the big toe, they did everything they could, but it got really, really badly infected all the way down through the bone, so they had to cut it off. So I ended up losing my big toe, well, cutting off half of it. So I ended up losing my big toe. The other toe was fine, and the sores have all healed up. Yeah, man. So that concludes this story time. And, like I say, I encourage you men, you fellas, don't be afraid to go see your doctors, man. Don't be afraid to go in and tell them when something's wrong with you, because you could end up in the same position that I found myself in, being prideful and stubborn. Listen to your woman, man, when she says, hey, we need to start going to the doctors more often. Plus, a lot of us are getting older, and we need to take our health a bit more seriously. So I'm gonna conclude this one because I'm here picking my wife up. And if you haven't already, once again, like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. Tell a friend to tell a friend, man. Hebron Ben Bilal is back with the Boomer's Logic again. Love y'all. See y'all on the next one.